Another week has come and gone in the NFL, and it's time to take a look back at 3-2. So another week has come and gone in this 2013 NFL season. It's time to take a quick look back at Week 5 and all the happenings, the highlights and the lowlights in some cases, and take a quick look forward to Week number 6 as well. Some of the big stories out of Week number 5, both the New Orleans Saints and Kansas City Chiefs are 5-0 right now. You might have expected a team like the Denver Broncos to come out of the gate 5-0, but the New Orleans Saints and the Kansas City Chiefs, I guarantee you, just about nobody saw this coming, including the people in New Orleans and Kansas City. And even though Kansas City's had a really weak schedule so far, 5-0 is still 5-0 in the NFL, and they're playing a good, solid brand of football right now, something that has to even be concerning to those undefeated Denver Broncos. The New Orleans Saints, 2 straight quality wins, beating Miami at home and then going on the road this past Sunday and pretty much dominating my Chicago Bears. These teams are looking like the real deal right now, no question. The Seattle Seahawks losing their first game of the year. They probably should have lost last week to the Houston Texans, but they found a way to win that game, a game that they should have lost. And that's what really good teams do. But then they went to Indianapolis this past weekend and played a Colts team that was clicking and was kind of on fire. And, sometimes you're just going to lose those games. It doesn't mean the Seahawks aren't a legit contender. How many teams have ever finished the regular season undefeated? Just think about that. How many of those have even won the Super Bowl? What, 1 out of 2? 1 out of 2? Exactly. So the point being is you're due to lose one at some point in time. It's not a bad loss. Looking at the Giants, oh my God, what a train wreck. 0-5. When are they going to win a game? Ooh, terrible. Just about every facet of the game. I'd be stunned if Coughlin makes it through the whole season. The Atlanta Falcons being 1-4. Wow. I didn't think the Falcons were going to win that division this year, but wow, 1-4. And Roddy White's still not healthy. Steven Jackson's not healthy. And now it looks like Julio Jones might be out for most, if not all, of the remainder of the 2013 season. Even though the Falcons start off with a really tough stretch in their first 5 games, there's no team that needed a bye week more desperately than the Atlanta Falcons did for week number 6, but their season could already be lost. And then we get to the Dallas Cowboys and Tony Romo being Tony Romo. Now, I said in my prediction video for week number 5 that I fully expected the Dallas Cowboys to make a game of it. It would not surprise me at all if they hung with the Broncos. It would not surprise me if they had a chance to win the game late and then they would find a way, like they always do, to piss it down their legs. And that's exactly what happened. That's because Tony Romo was Tony Romo. How in the blue hell do you outplay Peyton Manning? How in the blue hell do you put up 500 passing yards and 5 touchdowns, have the game of your life, and still find a way to be the typical Tony Romo chode in the clutch and throw a horrendous pick deep in your own territory, mind you, with under 2 minutes to go in the game? Only Tony Romo could find a way to do all that. Outperform Peyton Manning, have his team in position to win late, have 500 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, and then throw a horrible pick and cost his team the game. Only Tony Romo could do that. Unbelievable. Some of the highlights for me from week number 5, I'll take a look at Geno Smith. When you look at him so far in this 2013 season, he's been plagued by some terrible decisions and poor ball handling and poor ball security. He demonstrated none of that Monday night against Atlanta. 16 of 20, 199 passing yards. That's an 80% completion percentage. A quarterback rating of what, like 144? 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Beautiful game for Geno Smith. What a great kind of introductory performance to the Monday night national primetime television audience. The Jets are 3-2 right now. Geno Smith has definitely helped that. And this is an organization with a much better vibe about it than it would have if Mark Sanchez was starting right now. Make no mistake about that. Terrell Pryor, to me, is another highlight. Leading his Raiders to victory over the Chargers this past late Sunday night. When you look at Terrell Pryor right now, one thing that he brings the Oakland Raiders is hope. He brings the hope to Raiders fans that they're not going to be just complete doormats, that they're going to be competitive. And, for people just looking for football games to watch, Terrell Pryor brings a reason for people to check out Oakland Raider games. Pryor could potentially, and it's still very early to say this, could potentially be a franchise changer for the Oakland Raiders. At the best case scenario at this point in time, the most you could ask for is that Terrell Pryor continues to play at a solid level, show some progression, show some improvement throughout the course of the season, and it gets to the point where the Oakland Raiders, heading into 2014, are not even considering a quarterback in the first round because they think they found their guy, and they may very well have. I want to also point out that I thought Brandon Weeden was impressive in the Thursday night game against Buffalo. Hoyer was looking great, and he was looking like the man, and the fans in Cleveland had reason to be excited about their team. After the Richardson trade, they had won 2 straight games. Hoyer, he just looked like he had that something special. And then he goes down with an injury. And Brandon Weeden comes in, and the crowd hates him. They don't like him, and understandably so. It's a tough situation. Weeden looks shitty early on, but he pulls it together in the second half. And he pieces together a couple of nice drives and leads his Browns to victory. And now they're sitting in a tie for first in the division at 3-2, and things are looking up in Cleveland. And that was a very tough situation for Brandon Weeden to come in and play well, and ultimately he did play well, led his team to victory. In terms of one other highlight, the Indianapolis Colts. The bottom line is they're showing that last year was definitely no fluke. They're 4-1 right now, They've beaten some quality teams. They've beaten San Francisco on the road. They beat Seattle at home. Their one loss of the year was to a 3-2 Dolphins team. This is a very good football team, and I think a little under the radar right now in terms of a legit contender in the AFC. And all I have to say is right now, Week 7, when Denver goes to Indianapolis, Peyton and his Broncos better be concerned because luck might hang their first loss of the season on them. And you look at lowlights for week number 5. I first look at the Thursday night game. You had a pair of lowlights. Unfortunately for the Cleveland Browns and the Buffalo Bills, they both lost their promising young quarterbacks for extended periods of time. Unfortunately for the Cleveland Browns, they lost Brian Hoyer for the season, and it's sad because he just led them to 2 straight victories. He was looking really good. It looked like he had that special something. It looked like he was going to establish himself as the man, and then pow, now his season's over. And it's kind of chaos again in Cleveland, unfortunately for them. Same thing with Buffalo in a way. E.J. Manuel establishing himself as a man. And then he strains his LCL. It looks like he's going to be out maybe as little as a month, maybe as much as 2 months. The Bills weren't necessarily really a playoff contender this year, but by God, this season was all about E.J. Manuel and his development. And now losing him for a month, maybe even 2 months, definitely stunts his growth a little bit and kind of plays into this whole thing of E.J. Manuel having trouble staying healthy. Unfortunate for the Buffalo Bills. Unfortunate for both of these teams that were playing relatively good football this year to lose their young, promising signal callers. You look at other disappointments and lowlights. Eli Manning. What an abortion of a season he's having. His Giants are 0-5. They can't do anything right. And Eli turns the ball over way too damn much. I don't even need to go much farther than that. Tony Romo in the clutch is always a disappointment. Cowboy fans, you should fucking know better, and it shouldn't surprise you by now. Matt Schaub was horrible again. Yates isn't any better, Texans fans. Just remember that. He's not going to do much better for you either. But Schaub has been god-awful. They are paying him a lot of money. He flat out needs to play better. 3 picks against the 49ers. Getting benched? Woo! Stinko. But speaking of Stinko, the Broncos defense on Sunday, 48 points given up. You made Romo look like a Hall of Famer. That's not good. The Broncos have been giving up some points and giving up a lot of yardage. This team reminds me a lot of the 98 Vikings or even the 2011 Packers. 2 teams that went 15-1 in the regular season but came up short in the playoffs in part because their defenses didn't play that well. And, their offense could only mask so many deficiencies. Same way with the 98 Vikings in some ways. You could say, Gary Anderson's kick. Well, the bottom line is their defense was not great. And that was definitely the case in the 2011 Packers. Their offense had a bad game. It was Kaputski's. It was all over. And I see the same thing coming for this year's Denver Broncos if their defense doesn't start playing better. 48 points and all that yardage given up to the Cowboys is inexcusable and flat out unacceptable, especially if you want to be a real deal legit Super Bowl contender. Otherwise, the Broncos are just going to be like so many other Peyton Manning-led Colts teams over the years. A team that goes 13-3, 14-2 in the regular season and falls up short in the playoffs. Again, looking ahead to Week 6, you've got 3 games that really stand out to me above the rest. You've got the 2-2 Packers traveling to Baltimore to take on the 3-2 Ravens. You've got the 3-2 Lions traveling to Cleveland to take on the equally surprising 3-2 Cleveland Browns. Then, of course, the game of the week, the 5-0 Saints traveling to New England to take on the 4-1 Patriots. So those are some big matchups there. Especially, that Lions-Browns game is very interesting because one of these two surprise teams is going to be 4-2. And when they're 4-2, either one of them, that means they're going to, at worst, still have, after 6 games in this season, a share of first place in their division. And you never know. They could be sitting all alone in first place by the end of the day. I also think this is a big week for a couple of other teams. Notably, the Houston Texans. They're 2-3. If they have any real aspirations of being a playoff team this year or contending in the AFC South, they must win this week. They must win this week. Also, the Chicago Bears. After starting out 3-0 and looking pretty good, they've definitely shown some chinks in the armor the past 2 weeks. And now with the Lions sitting there at 3-2, and the Green Bay Packers sitting there at 2-2 and looking like they're going to have a very, very nice schedule the rest of the way, the Bears need to beat the Giants in Week 6. If they somehow find a way to piss it down their legs and lose to the 0-5 Giants and go 3-3, you can pretty much write off the Bears for the 2013 season. I guarantee you that.